Hey Untold Radio Network fans, want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
The paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your host, Dr. Dean Bertram.
Good evening, all my fellow weirdos and weirdettes. Welcome to Talking Weird on the Untold Radio Network. I'm your host, Dean Bertram, and we actually finally have real snow up here in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. I wonder wherever you are, if you're in the United States or anywhere else, if you've had snow today. Maybe you can let me know in the chat. I know some of my friends are in areas which have been hit hard, people who are regular listeners, so let me know if you're okay, if you're surviving this snowstorm. I've been wanting to talk to tonight's guest for some time now. He's a podcaster and children's book author from Morgantown, West Virginia. He is co-host on the Cryptid comedy podcast, Mothboys. He's written 2 children's books, Mothman Learns the ABCs. I should get that for my daughter. She'd dig that. And Curious Creatures, the Vegetable Man. She'd probably also dig that. He and his podcast also released the book, The White Monsters of Sherman, New York. Apparently, he helps throw a huge cryptid theme event every year in West Virginia called Cryptid Bash, which I've actually heard of, and I should try to make an attempt to go there if it's going this year. Oh, that might be one of my first questions for him. And his most recent work, UFO is a bucket of, let's just say SHI and another initial, because this is a family show. It's a Gray Barker Zine anyway. And it collects an assortment of writings and images from the work of the late great ufologist, film booker and promoter, and sometimes prankster Gray Barker. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight on Talking Weird. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the show for the first time, Michael Strayer.
Hello. Hi, Dean. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. It's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Man, it's my absolute pleasure. I can actually hold the book up. I was going to put an image on screen as well. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so good that you actually bothered to go and do this. Maybe you can, we'll talk about Barker in a minute, but can you let us know what gave you the idea to put together this piece?
I had an interest in Barker beforehand, obviously. And it turned out that, I found out that the archives were in Clarksburg, West Virginia, which is not too far from where I live. It's about, I'd say 40 minutes from where I live. So I just wanted to start checking it out. And I had interest in him because, he, like you said in the little intro, you said, prankster. And I appreciate that because I'm in a comedy podcast. So right. I can relate to him in that sense. So I was like, what else can I find out about this guy? And I just started going weekly. And I had no idea why. I was just getting information and just kind of compiling stuff, photocopying stuff. No idea why, just because. So I think it just started off as a curiosity to get to know him more and to get to know his material more. Yeah,
Barker has always been one of my favorite authors in this space. I remember when I was researching and just consuming incredible amounts of UFO material when I was doing my PhD on the topic. I actually hadn't read. I've got a copy of it here. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite books. They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. I mean, literally.
Is that
Sorry?
like a first edition you got
It's
there?
it's the second edition. It's still
Nice.
from 56, but it's actually
Nice.
the second printing. I'd love to have a first with the cover intact, of course, but
Mhm.
I'm not made of money, unfortunately. Um, but reading that book, the only other book I've read which has had the same kind of impact on me on a very visceral, immediate level, is John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and we'll talk about their connection and their popularization of Mothman as well tonight. But there's something about Barker's writing style which just mesmerized me, and it obviously mesmerized you as well to draw you into doing this collection of his writings.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's kind of funny, and he's dry a little bit in his humor, and I like that. And he's got some yeah, he's just yeah, and the way he describes things, it really sucks you into the world. It really gets you. Like, even reading some of just his little articles that he wrote for some of his Saucerian, and they really suck you in and get you into the story. And I love that too. So
Maybe for you and I obviously are very familiar with who Barker is, but maybe for those in the audience, because he doesn't get his dues today, much like Ray Palmer, who we might talk about as well, who he was certainly associates with, and mention Palmer and his famous poem, which is what the title of your book comes from.
Yeah.
But maybe could you let people know a little bit about who Barker was?
Yeah. So Barker, Gray Barker, was born in Braxton County, West Virginia, which is the home of the Flatwoods Monster, as some of you or many of you know. And he was born into poverty, and he eventually went to school at Glenville State College, I believe, and he got out of school, and he was teaching in Maryland. I think he was a teacher for a while, and then eventually he went on to working in the theater. I think you mentioned that, booking movies and things like that around West Virginia. And then he got into UFOs and flying saucers, as they were called back then, which I love. I think that should still be called flying saucers. I think that's so cool.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah. But then his first book, the one you're holding up, They Knew Too Much, came out, and his first material was actually the creature, the Flatwoods Monster. That was the Fate magazine article he wrote for them about the Flatwoods Monster. So
and you've got a copy. You've got a copy of that article in the book for people.
I do, yeah. I made sure to get that one because that's an important one. I really like that article. There's a couple. He did a couple articles, but I like that one specifically because that was his foray into the whole thing. That was like his, that was him getting into it. So I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned you summed it up pretty well. He was a ufologist, author, prankster, from time to time when needed. Which I see, by the way, I see as entertainment more than anything. I know that, he was duping people a little bit, but I had read somewhere that he used to pull these pranks when there was a lull in ufology. So like he'd do these pranks in order to, to get the interest back up, which would bring him more money from his books. It all circles back to making a little money and stuff. But you summed it up pretty well, just saying, he's a ufologist, and he prankster from time to time, and just really a really interesting guy. He stayed in West Virginia pretty much his whole life. He didn't really, he did little trips. I think he went out to what was it, Giant Rock or whatever, that big convention. Or was it Big Rock, Giant Rock? Yeah.
Where the contactees all met.
Yeah, but he had different little saucer news and Saucerian and different little things that he ran. So, but yeah, I mean that sums him up pretty well. He a lot of people say he didn't have interest in this stuff, but I didn't know him personally, but I think I have to disagree. Just to be able to do this every day with your life, you have to have some kind of interest in it, So yeah, that was him who just did. I just like to call him, I like to call him an author, is what I call him, because that's how I know him, just from reading his articles and his books and stuff. So yeah.
There is that. It's weird because I'm no thing like Barker in personality, and I don't even think of myself as part of the UFO community, to be honest. I mean, I love talking to people in it, but
yeah,
my background is an academic outside of it, really. But it's interesting that he was so interested in promoting films as well as this is his other thing that he did. Because my main gig is running film festivals, and content creation and the like. But I also do this, so it's interesting how the two can kind of excite some people who can be very interested in particularly genre movies and and UFO belief. But talking about his hoaxing for a minute, maybe this is a nice jumping off point. Although it's not really the central part of Barker, I don't think, but it's one he's often remembered for. Is there's a great quote from Jim Moseley, who I had the fortune of getting drunk with before Moseley passed in Clearwater years ago. And of course, we talked about what we're about to talk about now. So we talked about the Straith letter, which we'll get into, the famous hoax letter that Moseley and Barker wrote one drunken night. But in that documentary, in Fade to Grey, is that what it's called? The Barker,
it's called Shades of Grey. I think.
Shades of Grey. Sorry, I saw Fade to Grey before from Jay Katsu. Thank you for listening. Shades of Grey. It's a fantastic documentary. People should watch it if they haven't seen it. But there's a quote from Jim Moseley in there where he makes some throwaway reference to if they were hoaxing or something, like Barker would just say, "Oh, it's part of the pattern."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
me too.
I don't remember that quote from the movie, but I could hear him saying that, So you're lucky that you got to hang out with him. By the way, he seemed like a really cool guy. So
I was blessed when I was doing my PhD dissertation, and I was still based in Sydney then, but I came to America and toured around to various UFO hotspots and conferences and the typical Area 51 Roswell type places. But I'm so glad I did that trip because I got to meet both Moseley and Keel and interview both of them and hang out with them both privately in bars. Keel didn't drink then. He'd stopped drinking. He was drinking Diet Coke, I think, when I was drinking something else at the bar. But those people, along with Barker, along with Ray Palmer, are these great... I don't think there's anybody, and I'm not taking a shot at the UFO community now, but I don't think there's the giants that used to inhabit the field in those, the days from the late 40s all the way through into the 70s. The Keels, the Barkers, the Mosleys, and the Palmers were just phenomenal. But before we drift away from the hoax topic, which we got into, do you know much about the Straith letter?
I do know. I know a little bit
about
hoaxes. It. Yeah, I know a little bit about the because they were writing. Gray had gotten a hold of some government letterhead, I think, is what had happened, and him and Moseley, like you said, were some drinks, and I think they started writing this letter out to, was it Adamski maybe, or some? It was some. That's
correct. The Straith letter is the one. They did a number, but the main one that they're famous, the one that became most famous, was the one they sent to Adamski.
Right. Yeah, and I think I remember in the I think I read online somewhere that they did one to Moseley's father to tell him to stop being a right-wing jerk or something, just something silly like that. But they got drunk, and they wrote out this letter to Adamski saying, we just want to tell you that we believe you, but we can't make it like publicly known, kind of deal, I believe. And he loved that because he was the I don't know much about Adamski, about what I know he was a contactee.
He was the most famous of the
Venusians. Right. Venusians, and but they wrote a letter to him saying the government was behind him, and they sent it to him, and he loved that. He heralded it, and he was showing people, look at this letter I got from the government saying, they believe me, they believe in what I saw. And I think they even came out and told him, and he still was like, no way, this is real. This is from the actual government. I think that the government came, I think they sent the FBI or somebody to Adamski and said, you've got to stop running that letter. It's a hoax. Right. And that just made Adamski run it twice as heavy, saying they're trying to silence me. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he ran with it. So
I have probably more time for the contactees, not because I think it's necessarily literally real, their experiences, but in modern time, when ufology kind of just grabbed onto the abductee narrative and accepted it wholeheartedly, it seems so strange that it was a different time, admittedly, but the contactees were always so dismissed and ignored. And if people like Barker in jest and John Keel more seriously talked about some hoaxing and some other things being part of the pattern, then I often wonder if some of the contactees in that period might not have had some experiences and then felt the kind of need in this very materialist world we live in, this very positivist type, environment to, well, I can't prove it, so I'm going to prove it. I often wonder if that, and I think Keel, I think I actually got that from Keel or somebody like that who was writing at the time.
Right. Yeah. By the way, when you were saying like, there's not many people like that out there anymore, the Keels and the Barkers, you have a lot of people out there. So I've read and heard a lot saying that old school, like the old school way of ufology. It kind of died out with Barker. I mean, it kind of, it faded as Barker faded. You know what I mean? I've heard many people say that. John Keel lived and all that stuff, but a lot of people think there was a real door that closed when Barker passed away, I think, and he was a giant in
Absolutely.
whether you believe in his stuff or not. That's besides the fact, really. I mean, but the stuff he did for the ufology and things like that were huge. So, yeah.
Yeah, as Asper 60, who is either Jay Katz or his wonderful wife, Aspersia, who also hosts a show on the Untold Radio Network down south, Anomalies, which people should check out if they haven't already. He says, but speaking about Barker, he was a true outsider, similar to the English music producer Joe Meek, lost and lonely at times, profound in his research at other times, groundbreaking work for the time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree to that. And yeah, he was and I think that sadly he was an outsider till the end. I don't think, I think he died not much money and not very happy. He was a little bit bitter, I think, and it's kind of a depressing ending on his end. But yeah, I think that he was a true outsider. I think he was from West Virginia. It is very it's secluded. I mean, it's it can get lonely at times here, and you could tell that in some of his writing. And yeah, but I agree with that comment. True outsider, absolutely.
It's interesting. You start UFO is a bucket of SHI something, the Gray Barker Zine, with a letter from NICAP, which was the major civilian UFO organization at the time, refusing to take Barker's money and accept him as a member.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pieces that I read. I thought that was a to me, if I got that letter, that would have been a badge of honor. Honestly, I would have been like, that's the outsider thing. You know what I mean? That's like, well, I don't want to be part of your club anyways. Then, you know what I mean? If you're going to be gatekeeping like that, I mean, then I won't be a part of it. I just thought that was a good way to start that zine off. I think he would have appreciated that too. Maybe not, but I feel like, if I, I think he would have thought that would have been funny, I think. And yeah, because it just kind of shows he didn't need that. He was part of clubs and stuff, but he didn't need NICAP in the end. I mean, he was huge. He was like, you keep saying, and I keep saying, he was giant in the whole ufology. So I thought that was a pretty cool way to start the zine off. Just getting this, we've returned your check or whatever, which I think is hilarious. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just thought that was a good way to start off.
Oh, it was perfect. I laughed. I mean, I'd already heard the story, but I laughed hard.
Right.
I'm sure most people haven't. I'd heard the story because I've been buried in this forever. But
yeah,
sorry, go on.
No, I haven't. See, that's the thing. When I was sitting down looking through his files, that was the first time I read that. So I saw that, and I was sitting there at the library there, and I was cracking up by myself. I just thought it was hilarious that yeah, this whole deny letter was I
think Mosley was denied as well at one stage, if I recall. I think that's where I heard. I think I heard both of them had been denied. We have a question from Horace Smith, who's actually an emeritus professor of astronomy and physics at Michigan State University and a regular listener and a regular guest on this show. And he asks, did Barker fit into any particular West Virginian tradition of prankster investigators? Was like this something before Barker or?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know a lot of investigators from West Virginia. I know there are people that like to investigate things, but proper investigators and ones that like to prank, I'm not sure. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I wonder where he got his. Well, his influence was I keep forgetting his name. Fate magazine.
Ray Palmer.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I wonder. I don't know of any other ones though. I know Ray Palmer wasn't a prankster, but he was his influence though.
Yeah, Ray Palmer was, I mean, I don't know if you know, I'm sure my audience is sickened to death of me talking about it, but I'm in the process of making a documentary about Palmer and Shaver and the Shaver mystery called The Man Who Invented Flying Saucers. The title I obviously stole from John Keel.
Yeah.
Because Keel had made, and I'd agreed with Keel in my PhD dissertation when I was in Sydney, being nowhere near Wisconsin and being very conscious of Palmer and talking about him at some length in my academic work, but then just by total coincidence, I'm like you. You were saying West Virginia's lonely in the middle of nowhere or something. I really want to get to West Virginia, by the way. But I literally live in the middle. I live in rural Wisconsin. And when I was reading up the Palmer and Shaver stuff for another show I used to do called Mysterious Library with Jason McLean, also on this network, when we were doing a Palmer Shaver episode. I hadn't read the material since university. I was going through, old pulps and other stuff that I had. And then it dawned on me, I knew he lived in Wisconsin. I Googled it and he lived like 50 minutes down the road from me in a neighboring county. So it's interesting that both Palmer and Barker, well, Palmer originally was a big city boy who obviously launched himself and became, the most significant, arguably pulp magazine editor in history, but that's a conversation for another time. But Barker, he ended up rurally, probably in as obscure a place as where Barker came from.
Where did Palmer end up? In
Amherst, Wisconsin. Yeah, Amherst, but I mean, it's a tiny town in the middle of nowhere.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, my dad lives over in a little town called Paddock Lake, Wisconsin. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No, do you know if it's what part of the state it's in? Or?
Is there a Salem, Wisconsin, by any chance?
I think there is, but I don't know where. I'm newish because I only moved here in like 2014. So I hear towns and I've heard them before, but if I couldn't even point north.
It's kind of by Chicago. I think if you're heading into the state, it's more like down that way.
Right,
I think
down near Janesville or something like that. I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I don't know a lot about Ray Palmer, honestly. I know the main thing about, so I would be interested in seeing your work. I'm excited for that. So
talk to me afterwards and I'll send you some stuff to look at.
Awesome.
But let's stay focused, of course, on Barker for a moment. Horace said thank you for the reply, and we have a question now from either J Katz or Aspasia, and the question is, does Michael, and thank you so much for your great research, he says, or you, meaning me, I guess, know the Ralph Kuhn black and white documentary Whispers from Space in 1996? It's an outstanding documentary. The only reason I know about it, Jay, is because you showed it to me all those years ago. But do you know about it?
First of all, was it Horace? That was
Horace, who thank you for the reply.
Yes, I apologize. It wasn't as thorough as it should have been. But thank you for the question. So Whispers from Space, absolutely. I think I prefer out of the two, Whispers from Space and Shades of Grey. I prefer Whispers from Space. I think it's a lot harder to get your hands on. I think I have a copy. I have a DVD copy that I found somehow. I don't know how I got it, but I remember a while ago I got it from somebody had copied it over to my computer, I think, and they're like, "You need to watch this." It's like a weird mix of like Christopher Guest or like that's like that weird kind of documentary style, and I was absolutely like, "This is awesome!" Like this is, I have all these strange characters, and it's all surrounded by this one strange character, Gray Barker. And they're just these strange interviews with these people. And it's the black and white's awesome. I think if you can get your hands on Whispers from Space, I would say get it. I think, and let me give you a tip real quick. I do a lot of searching for Gray Barker, and I believe somebody on Etsy. So if you want to go look up Whispers from Space on Etsy, I think there's one copy left. This guy had it for some reason. There's one copy left of the DVD. So if you want to, if you can race over there and get it, but yeah, I highly recommend Whispers from Space. I think it is astounding. I think it's fantastic. Even if you're not interested in Gray Barker per se, it's kind of quirky and weird, and just some parts are funny, some parts are just baffling and like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, it's really, really interesting. So I do recommend watching Shades of Grey. I mean, that's more info based. It's more, you know what I mean? And then you get all this other weird information from Whispers from Space. So yeah, I highly recommend it though.
It's super evocative. I mean, I love both of the documentaries, and I've seen Shades of Grey maybe 2 or 3 times. I've only seen Whispers from Space once, and I remember it. And this is, I think Jay that showed it to me or lent me a copy. I don't have a copy anymore anyway. And this is going back probably over 20 years now when I saw it, and I remember it being super weird and evocative. Like it felt, it was. I'm trying to think of another. Maybe, though it's very different, maybe Wisconsin Death Trip, if anybody's seen that, evoked the same sense of weirdness for me. Like it was almost not unsettling like a nasty horror movie, but still made you feel kind of like entering some kind of Lynchian parallel universe while
that's good. I like that Lynchian, and I think that it's almost just like the director just drove down the road in West Virginia in the back road and just started talking to people, and that maybe that's what's a little unnerving. I just think it was, he got these people to talk and just ask them questions, and there was no preparing for it. I think they just, like, there's one scene in the movie where it's a guy out in the field And I think he's got some kind of picture next to him or something. And I think it's awesome because you can see all the West Virginia backdrop and stuff like that. But yeah, and it's super strange. And like, yeah, I would try to track it down if you haven't seen it. It's great. So
If somebody else doesn't do it, I'm going to go buy that.
right, you go get it. Yeah.
I'll be like,
Yeah.
bye, Michael.
Yeah, right.
Bye, what is Etsy whispers from space. One of the things I think, and I mentioned it briefly in the show notes, and you're obviously more than cognizant of it, is how much of modern UFO belief and UFO lore and the cases today, which, movies get made by everything from Small Town Monsters to, of course, Doug Hychek, who runs this channel, his old Monster Quest, to every UFO documentary you've ever seen, on things like The Mothman, on things like Men in Black. I mean, it's a Hollywood franchise, for goodness sake, on things like the Flatwoods Monster. But it was so niche then, and to think how important, maybe let's just break that down one by one. Maybe let's talk about Barker's involvement. We talked about Flatwoods. Maybe you can talk a little bit about his involvement in popularizing Mothman even before Keel.
Right. Yeah. He released the Silver Bridge. I think it was 4 or 5 years before Keel. Because the whole deal was that Keel and him were supposed to work on a book together, and it just never panned out. And I'm just reading this Ed Schultz. I Googled Whispers and found it available from several sources. Well, there you go. I mean, go get it, guys. I mean, just go find it. Whispers from Space. But so yeah, they were supposed to work together on a book together, but it just didn't happen for some reason. So Gray went off and wrote Silver Bridge. Keel went off and wrote Mothman Prophecies. And I like them both. I think they're both wonderful books. And Gray was also there to interview the initial eyewitnesses and everything. He had a big part in it as well. But I love Silver Bridge. Have you read that book before?
Yeah, it's great.
It's fantastic. I mean,
I have such a soft spot for Mothman Prophecies because it's the book that turned me onto an alternative explanation for all this stuff. So nothing for me ever surpasses Mothman, but Silver Bridge is great. It is
right.
It's fantastic.
I would agree, but it's like two different things. I mean, because you get Gray's view and then you get John Keel's view, and like there's different things there. So it's kind of like kind of cool. It's kind of, if you put them in one book together, that might be interesting. But yeah, he had a big hand in Mothman. I mean, he was out there researching. Actually, funny enough, I want to mention this real quick. I was going through some correspondences between John Keel and Gray Barker.
Oh, wow.
And it was pretty cool. Just like these letters. And there was one where like John Keel was really tearing into like Gray Barker. Like you're just like, oh man, poor guy. Like he's like, John Keel was like, he was just saying, some people have probably heard this before, but he was like, so you went to Point Pleasant and you weren't talking to people, you weren't interviewing people. So what are you doing down there? I mean, why aren't you guys more serious? Because I think they were doing some kind of Mothman convention or some kind of event, and I guess they weren't doing enough to make John Keel happy. You know what I mean? So hard to please, I bet. You know what I mean? So
I'd just say briefly, and then I'll let you get back to your story. I met Keel, and I love the man. Like I love him, but he was prickly in the extreme. Like he could get up. He got annoyed with me, and I didn't think I was doing anything annoying. But you forgive somebody who's older and is like perhaps the pinnacle of what you think in the field anyway. Like it was like they say to never meet your heroes, but anyway, so sorry. So yes, he was very prickly. So
I do notice that even in watching like interviews and even the speeches side by side, Barker and Keel, you can tell Keel is very straightforward, which isn't a bad thing. It's brought us all this information, but like Barker, he cracks some jokes and Keel just doesn't do that. And I love that correspondence I read. It was just a quick letter, just John Keel just really tearing Gray a new one, and it was kind of hard to read a little bit, but I thought it was kind of funny.
I would love to read them.
Yeah. But yeah, he had a huge hand in the Mothman. In the Mothman case, I mean, like I said, he was interviewing the Scarberries and the Millettes, and yeah, it's just two different things too. It's just if you Mothman Prophecy is great, Silver Bridge is great, and if you haven't read Silver Bridge by Gray Barker, I would highly recommend going to get that too, because I feel like if you read Mothman Prophecies, you should read Silver Bridge too, just to get a whole different view on it. Yeah.
What do you know anything, or what do you know about Barker maybe pranking Keel to some degree during his
Oh yeah,
Mothman investigation?
yeah. The the phone call prank, which I think it's part of the documentary, or maybe it's not part. Maybe it is, but the phone call between Indrid Cold and Richard Gere in the hotel was supposedly based on this this phone call that John Keel got late at night one night, and this he picks up the phone and this guy says in a robot, like a monotone robot type voice, this is Gray Barker, and I forgot exactly what the whole conversation was, but it's he got a hold of Gray the next day and says, "Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about," and I don't know. I don't remember if they ever figured it out, if he ever came out and said he did it, but yeah.
It certainly added to Keel's paranoia.
It did. It really did. Yeah. Which is, I mean, maybe that helped. Maybe his paranoia brought out more material or something, you know what I mean? But
And speaking about that wonderful scene in that movie, and we'll talk about, because you actually helped promote a screening of
Oh, yeah.
Mothman recently. We'll hit that in a minute too.
yeah.
But I have to do a line for you from the movie and ask you a question.
Yeah.
Actually, no, well, I'll have to play both parts because that's the joke. And this won't be funny for people who are only listening. But okay, what am I holding in my hand? Chapstick.
Yeah. Yep. That's the ultimate
Blistex,
line.
actually, but
That's funny. That's funny because that line even that line made it into my children's book actually, which is funny.
Wow!
Yeah,
I got to get that for my daughter. I'm going to go.
You should.
I'll go and check out your Amazon page.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, but that's one of my favorite lines. That's a downright creepy scene. I don't care who you are. That's very
that movie
tense.
is so good. I hear some people who complain it's not close enough to the book. When I did meet Keel at Fort Fest '99, the film was in production, and he did a speech and was joking that he got a kick out of Richard Gere playing essentially Keel, and you could tell he was happy about and I didn't talk to him after it was released, but my understanding, I think from I think on Doug Skinner's johnkeel.com site, I think there's mention in there somewhere that Keel was quite happy with the film. He certainly was involved in the documentary they released alongside it to promote the film as well. And for me, that film, it mightn't tell the story, well, what's objective truth anyway, but to tell the story point by point, but it certainly captures the weirdness and the feeling you get when you first read that book.
Sure does. It sure does. And if you watch it now, I remember seeing it in theaters with my dad when I was a teenager. We saw it one of the first days it came out, and it scared my little brother. It scared him for 2 weeks straight. You know what I mean? And but if you watch it now, it doesn't age. It's still fantastic. It's just spectacular. It just doesn't. It ages very well. I mean, a lot of movies from that time, I don't know. They're just not as good as you thought. You know what I mean? So, but Mothman Prophecies is fantastic. It still is.
And my mother's visiting she's still here for the holidays for Christmas from Australia. And I showed it to her because it's a Christmas movie, right? I showed it to her as part of our Christmas viewing, and she really dug it. I wasn't sure how much she'd like it. She was like, that was a really good movie. And I'm like, you're telling me it's a good movie.
Even if you don't care about the whole Mothman, it's just a good, tense thriller. You know what I mean? Mystery, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just, it's a fantastic movie.
And I saw on your Facebook page when you were involved in the screening at the Erie Con or whatever it's called in Pennsylvania, that you managed to get a copy of, is it The Visible Dark by Alexander Leak? Oh my! I was so jealous. I'm like, I would have snatched that up in a New York minute.
Yeah, so it was a Erie Horror Fest. We're from the area-ish. I'm originally from Western New York up there, and Erie, Pennsylvania is about a half hour from where I grew up. So. They asked us, the Mothboys, to help just, put the word out. We didn't really have any hand other than that, just kind of helping promote it and push it a little bit. But, they got the director, Mark Pellington, who doesn't do events for this movie ever. So it was pretty cool just to meet him, and, seeing that movie up on the big screen was awesome. And and he was selling merch, like props and stuff from the movie from his personal collection. So it was like, it was a no-brainer. And the Visible Dark it's just a book cover. Obviously, if there's no book, Visible Dark, I always thought there was. I was like, oh man, I need to get that book. But
I think it's called the Black Tower or Operation Trojan Horse.
Yeah, it was.
It's one of the books, I guess.
Right, exactly. So, but actually,
sorry, the Eighth Tower. Why did I say the Black Tower? The Eighth Tower.
The Eighth Tower. That's it. Yeah.
Or Strange Creatures from Time or Space. One of them. It's meant to be one of them.
That's right. So So I bought that book. I'm like, I saw that, and I'm like, I picked it up right away. I didn't care about price. I just picked it up, and his stuff was fairly well priced for cool, movie merch. So I picked it up and I bought it. I was like, I always wonder what book was behind this book cover, and I can't tell you the title. I can get back to you about that, but it was
I'd love to hear.
That how do you say his name? I always get
one of Villet's books.
It was one of Villet's books. Yeah, that's what they used.
Like Passport to Magonia, or
it wasn't that one. It was something else. I'll get the title for you, but that's the book they used for the book. So
I have most of Villet's books in hardcover on my shelf, so I probably have.
You probably have it, yeah.
But I wish I'd rather have that wraparound of Visible Dark on there.
so if anybody wants to know what that book actually is, it's actually one of his books. So yeah, and that was a lot of fun. He's a really sweet guy. And he's an influence beyond Mothman Prophecies. He's done music videos for just about everybody, Pearl Jam, and so meeting him was really neat, and he was really sweet. We did an interview for our podcast with him, and he was a sweetheart, and it was kind of neat watching that movie with him. And then he did a little Q&A after, and he was like really, I think he appreciated it. He was lighting up about it, that people still appreciate this movie. So yeah,
I'm so glad to hear. I haven't listened to that Mothboys. I need to go and listen to it.
It's interesting. Yeah. It was fun. Yeah.
So beyond, obviously, we've talked about Flatwoods and his influence. Obviously, there as the person who really launched that. His incredible influence in promoting the Mothman story. I suppose Barker's other and maybe his biggest contribution to the popularization of an idea in ufology is the Men in Black.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. With the that's they knew too much. I mean, that's like the story behind that, So yeah.
Do you think you could tell our audience a little? Because, well, again, you and I know, and many of our audience members will know, but people newer to the field might have zero idea.
Right. So he was so he wrote this book. They knew too much about flying saucers, and in the book, he joined this. I forgot the name of the club now. It always slips my mind. Do you remember
some civilian saucer? I can't even. It's Bender's organization.
It was Al Bender's organization, and he was like a chief investigator or something like. He's some real cool title that Barker had, and I thought it was really neat. And he was really excited. It seemed like he was really excited to get that title too, which is nice. But he so he was part of this investigation team, and they would make these reviews up and these pamphlets and all these other annuals and things like that. But eventually Al Bender shuts it down one day, and just and for some reason and then Barker finds out that somebody had visited him and told him, you can't be talking about this stuff. And it was three men, and they had the whole thing. They had the black suits on, and so it was so these three guys just shut him up, and Barker was very confused, and he's like, what's going on? He tried to get more info out of him. There's a part and they knew too much where he's like asking questions to Bender, and Bender's like, I can't talk about that. It's really one of my favorite parts of the book, because he's asking questions, and then Bender would say, nope, can't talk about it, and then he asks him another question, and he answers it. And I just think that's one of my favorite parts of the book. It's so like great. It's intense, but yeah, it's essentially what it is. It's just about this these Men in Black characters that go around and shut up all these ufologists and like investigators and all these people. And it started with Al Bender and Gray Barker. I think Gray Barker, if I'm correct, I might not be, but I think that was his baby, essentially, with the Men in Black. I think that we have him to thank for the movies, I think, so, and Al Bender, of course. I mean, but yeah, that's the whole Men in Black thing started there. They shut down his organization, and yeah, that's what some of the book is about. And yeah, it's really cool. I like that. And they're wondering if it's government or if it's not government, and it's like, yeah, it's otherworldly, whatever, something, aliens or
and
whatever.
Barker writes so well, because it's terrifying, that book. I remember when I read, and even it's written in 56 or something, but even when I'm reading it, and I don't know when it would have been, the mid to late 90s, right? It was like, this book is still like, there's a mystery here, I don't read many. That's why Mothman Prophecies and that book are both two of my favorites. There's very few. Silver Bridge is great too. There's very few UFO books you read and you're like, there's something really uncanny and weird, and I'm terrified. Is it going to come and get me?
Right. Yeah, because you feel like you're going to get in trouble for reading what they're saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. That's how I felt reading the book first. I was like, first of all, I was like, this really happened. There's no doubt in my mind that this freaky stuff happened. And then 2, you're like, oh man, I don't know. Like, am I gonna hear a knock at my door and like the 3 men are gonna come in, you know? So, but yeah, that's we have him to thank for all the all that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I would like, for some reason, I wonder if he would get any money from that these days. If he was still around, he'd been very, you know, he's. Would he be getting money from that? Was there any copyright?
That's
I don't
a
know.
good question. You would hope
Yeah.
if he had still been alive that shows like the X-Files and the Men in
Right.
Black movies might have brought him in as a consultant and at least cut him a nice check or something.
Right.
But who knows? Jay Katz or Aspasia just said, and they know they're super switched on UFO people, said it was
Nice.
called the Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs of America, set up by UFO presidential candidate Gabriel Green.
Okay.
I did not know that last part, but I think Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs, that rings a bell.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super interesting.
But yeah, that was all him, man. It was just him. We have somebody writing here. I like reading this. I've never done something like this.
You can read out loud if you want to, so the audience can,
Okay,
can
yeah.
see it.
So
the audio.
Yeah,
can hear it.
Christian Morales, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I had a Men in Black encounter. I don't really talk about it because it's so weird. I didn't see them. I saw a black SUV tinted all the way. It's about to hit my car. It's behind me. Look away for 1 second, then gone. Ooh, that's weird. I mean, that's.
And here's the second part of the
story. Here we go. It was gone. I took my eyes off the rear mirror and looked back, and the SUV was gone. I can't explain it. That is strange. That's what they say to you know, their whips are black. They're black. They ride in black whips. You know, that's what they like. They like their black cars. So that's very possible, because they used to ride in what was a black Cadillacs or something
like that. Absolutely.
Something like that. Yeah, but now they're doing SUVs. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? You know,
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the great mysteries of UFO lore is it the government? Is it, like, certainly when you read Keel's books, you always get the impression they're the ultra-terrestrials themselves, because they've got weird wires coming out of their legs, or they've got strange, it's probably not PC to say now, but he would say oriental features and dark feet. They didn't quite look like a normal resident of West Virginia at the time.
Right.
They seemed like they were from elsewhere, and they disappear very quickly, and they'd say weird things, and people would seem to be hypnotized just in their presence. But the more, I suppose, scientific ufology always thought, well, it's the NSA or the CIA or the Air Force or somebody shutting people up.
Yeah. Well, I like
it was both.
Was it Mothman Prophecies where where a man in black runs into the office of Mary Hire and plays with a pen or whatever? Oh man, that's one of the funniest, and like, I love that story. That's one of my favorite stories of any book I've ever read. Just like him running in and like he takes the pen, then he run out like
he does something weird.
That's hilarious. That's also, I want to give a shout out to Mary Hire. Also, she is also another underdog who really, I'm not so sure we would have as much at all if she didn't do the Where the Waters Mingle. I mean, if she wasn't reporting on that stuff, she might be the real underdog in the Mothman story. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
good point.
Yeah, she was great. So
I guess the closest to her in the movie is the sheriff played by Laura Linney. I guess that's meant to be the Mary Hire in the movie. They're both, Gear and Linney are both the whole cast is fantastic.
Well, and Gordon Smallwood was in the movie, which is was just a shout out to They Knew Too Much, I think, which is what's his name in real life? But yeah, his name is Gordon Smallwood, and then I think in They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, he mentions a Gordon Smallwood, wishing that he brings him up at some point.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I myself didn't know that.
Yeah, look into that, because I think that they took that straight from They Knew Too Much. Okay, here we go. It looked like an Escalade, but I couldn't see the logo of the car, which was strange. That is strange.
That's from Christian Morales again.
Thank you for the story. I appreciate that. That's creepy. Watch your back.
They're still haunting us to this day. So
yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
That's the thing. I think Barker would get a kick out of it. Imagine if Barker got to sit down and watch Men in Black on the big screen.
I think if he was making some money off it, I think he'd like even more. So.
I think that was the great thing about Mothman Prophecies. I believe John Keel got a real check for that, and he hadn't. I mean, legend has it that he hardly made any money off of his UFO books. In fact, forget legend, I think he himself said, I hardly made any money off of any of these books.
Well, so he may got a check from that one. But I've also somebody was telling me that Gray and John kind of passed on the same way. They kind of both were a little bit I don't want to say, I don't know how to explain it. They just weren't happy in the ufology field. I think they both kind of passed on not as happy as they could be with the field, the
Well,
work anymore.
have you ever read Keel's The Subculture of Flying Saucer Belief, I think it's called? It was an article he wrote for the Journal of Popular Culture in, like, I don't know, 75. I think they published it in 78 or something. Have you read it? Or Keel re-released it in a booklet that he used to sell at conventions, and Doug Skinner, who now runs JohnKeel.com, who's himself a wonderful performer and comedian, a fantastic speaker. If you ever get a chance to see Doug anywhere, it's worthwhile. But he did the wonderful art, and it's so funny because it's got, it's his comedic art on the cover with everything from the Three Men in Black to the Hopkinsville Goblins. I think the Flatwood Monsters on it, Adamski's, Sorcerian type people are on it. There's a Darrow from the Shaver mythology coming out from the ground. But in that, he's writing at about 75. He's super critical of ufology that's come before, but it ends on this high note where he says we have the new ufology now, meaning Keel himself, people like Brad Steiger, people like Jacques Vallée. Even at that time, there was people who now either nuts and bolts or total flesh and blood believers. People like Lauren Coleman and Jerome Clark were doing wonderful work in this more para-ufological kind of field. So there was this sense at that period, I think, that, okay, we're finally getting somewhere with this kind of, way of looking at the phenomenon as not extraterrestrial craft from outer space. So Keel ends on a high note, but when he republished it in the 90s, he has like an addendum or a forward or an afterward. I can't remember where it appears, and he's essentially saying everything we hoped for hasn't come to fruition. It's worse than ever, So yes, by the end, he felt like the movie was perhaps his last kind of lasting idea. Maybe I'll get the message out there because we failed. The new ufology's failed, and it's still ETH. And, physical abductions and all of this other stuff.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of a bummer, but that's why I don't try to dwell too much into any of it. I don't try to find any. I'm not one to really try to find any answers, or I don't really dwell on it at all. I enjoy it from I'm not an investigator at all. I enjoy it from an outsider's perspective. I don't know if I want to get. I don't think I want to lose interest in it like some people do. I think that's what happens. They get burnt out and they get jaded about it, and which is understandable. You're searching your whole life for something and it just never comes up. And but yeah, I try to see it from an outsider's perspective, and I enjoy it. I think that much better.
Oh, I think you can. Yeah, I think it does stay fresh that way, and you can burn yourself out on this. I'll be honest. After I did my dissertation, I'd probably been interested in the phenomenon for maybe a decade or so before. And then when I spent so much time in the academy, by the end, I wanted nothing to do with UFO. And so I walked away for a long time. It's only when I came back to do Talking Weird, maybe we started probably 3 years ago before we were on Untold. We did a couple of years independently, but that I was refreshed enough. Now, if I'd been immersed in it as a full hardcore believer, maybe I would have been like Al Bender. Maybe things would have started haunting me. And this is what Keel said. And I think Barker was cognizant of this phenomenon as well. The idea that when you become involved, well, he clearly was. He's the man who wrote them. They knew too much about flying saucers. But the more you immerse yourself in this stuff, I think you can get, whether it's a psychological or whether it's a psychic or whether it's a genuine physical entity having some kind of backlash, or the government having a backlash. But you do hear these stories all along. And again, they knew too much about flying saucers is where it really all starts. The idea that investigators can often, for one reason or another, just want to drop out of the field.
It's it's totally understand. I mean, the time I spent at the archives in Clarksburg wasn't even that long, and I started to feel like, man, I don't know if I can go look at any more files. I don't know if I can go look at any more of his letters. Nothing against him, nothing against anybody, but you just start getting burnt out. I mean, yeah. So I don't know how they do it. I don't know how some of these guys do it and then stay positive, which is fantastic to me. I love that. So I guess when you go back and do this type of historical research, which not enough people do, to be honest, this to me is where so many of the secrets lie, whether it's in what Ray Palmer was talking about, whether it's what Barker was talking about, Keel, whoever. When you go back, I'm talking about you personally now, Michael, when you go back and do this kind of research, and you look at it historically, are you conscious of how different the field's become today? Or what's your impression? How much has changed? How much hasn't seemed to have changed? I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, I'm not sure how much it's changed. I don't, I'm thinking I'm that far removed probably that I don't know. I don't know much about. Are you talking about like new investigations and stuff like that? New investigators?
Well,
and
yeah,
their
just
work?
like if we look at your book, the type of accounts in there, like the Vegetable Man one,
Right,
and
right.
the what's the bucket of water one? The what's that case called?
Brush Creek.
The Brush Creek one, the Flatwoods Monster one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say what and I'm not going to go too deep, but all of these cases seem considerably different, and there doesn't seem to be any homogenization yet, and there seems to be a real weirdness. Now, we still talk about high strangeness today, but the weirdness then was over the top. Today, at least, you don't seem to, I don't know, to me at least, the phenomenon as it's being reported, regardless of what it actually is, the way it's presented, whether it's in Hollywood or whether it's in, on shows like, in this kind of space, it doesn't seem to be so diverse.
That's true.
To be honest.
Well, that's why I try to do with the zine too. I wanted to get different fringe things, like the real weird stuff. I'm a huge fan of the weird stuff. But yeah, I guess you don't really see that anymore. And I think that's what I mentioned earlier about a lot of people saying that that kind of stuff died out with Barker when he passed away, which I can kind of see, but I just pick those because I enjoy that stuff the most. I think that the weirder the better for me, I think. And it's, and like I said, I'm not any kind of investigator or anything. I don't ever proclaim to know anything about anything really. I just enjoy this. I enjoy it. And I think that, but yeah, I think it might be. I mean, you don't hear a lot about a vegetable man running around the woods of West Virginia. You know what I mean? So
can you tell that story for the audience who've
absolutely.
never heard it? It's a cool story, man.
Oh, it's very cool. So Jennings Frederick, who was a correspondent with Gray Barker, Vegetable Man wasn't his only encounter. He had a few others. But one day he was hunting in West Virginia, in a town not too far from Morgantown here, actually. It was in July. I forgot the year now. I always forget it, but it was July. He was hunting for woodchucks with his bone arrow, and he hears this a sound that he described that was like a record player being played backwards. So he hears that, and then as he maybe turns or whatever, this creature jumps out at him, and it's this giant green creature. And, in the eyewitness photo, it's very skinny. It's got little tuft of hair, black hair, and it's got a long nose, and it's just this very tall, horrifying looking creature. And at the end of its fingers are suction cups, which also turn out to be needles too. And I'll tell you that in a second. But this creature essentially tells Jennings, we know of you people. I come in peace. I don't mean to do you any harm or anything. But I need assistance. I need your help. So he goes to turn around, freaking book it, as anybody probably would. I don't know. I wouldn't talk to him. You know what I mean? I mean, so he goes to book it, and the creature latches onto his arm, and it starts siphoning blood through the suction cup needle fingers. It just starts sucking the blood out. And he's in shock. Essentially, is what's happening. So the Jennings looks up into the creature's face, and his eyes, the creature's eyes are twirling colors, yellow, blues. Then it puts him in a trance. Essentially, and it takes away that pain that he's feeling in his arm away. Jennings said he when he was looking at that creature's face, he didn't feel any of the pain. So the creature gets what he wants, the blood, whatever, for some reason, siphons the blood, and he leaps away. He leaps away, and then Jennings was later to say that he heard some kind of like a whirring noise or like a startup noise, which he attributed to a craft being started and like taking off. So that's the story of Jennings Frederick and the Vegetable Man. And weird stuff. That's one of my favorite. That's just a wild story, man. That's just out there.
It's crazy. And
yeah,
I know, again, getting back to Keel, I think he said something along the lines of, the weirder it is, the more serious you should take the story.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I've never heard that, but I like that. And I wrote a children's book based around this horrifying experience. I don't know how we did it, but we made a children's book about the Vegetable Man in that day. And essentially the book is so the book is it's through the creature's point of view. So what it is
Nice.
like, yeah, so it's so he has an emergency in his spacecraft and he needs to land, and the only way he can, because he forgot to eat that morning. So what it is he lands and he sees Jennings, and he sucks the blood out of his arms, and we call it food. And he goes up in his spacecraft and leave. But yeah, I made this book. I don't know how we did it, and just because it's one of the most horrifying encounters I've heard of. But yeah, if you go onto Amazon and read some of the reviews, there's not many, but there's a few that are like, this is not a children's book. I don't know what you're doing. So I was like, well, whatever,
Well, the best children's books are like the original Grimm's Brothers fairy tales. They've been so sanitized. Now, when I started to read them to my daughter, I read from the original German, like proper translation, and they're terrifying, but they were terrifying for a reason, because there's some kind of, I don't know, there's some kind of lessons about life in that you don't get in the Disney version. And I'm not really critiquing the Disney version, but there are stronger, there are more brutal lessons to be learned in maybe the book you wrote and an old Grimm's Brothers story than there is in a more sanitized kids book.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that's a real encounter too, which I don't know if it would help their opinions or not of it being horrifying and not for children. But what are you gonna do? I love the story. I think it's fantastic, and I think more kids should read it. So,
yeah, of course they probably should. You have a child, right, or two? I think
I do. Yeah. I have a child. His name is Levon, and he's about a year and a half.
He's a little too little, maybe, for some of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his favorite book is he just started picking up Mothman Learns the ABCs, my other book, and he gets to the end of the book, and there's my pictures in the back of the book, and he'll just go, "Daddy," no point right to me. It's wonderful to see. He's really loves learning. So yeah.
Oh, I bet my daughter grew up, and she's almost 8 now, but I guess because when I re-entered this kind of space, we were watching things, and in fact, the real reason is she got into dinosaurs, and because I'm interested in other weirdness, I thought, well, if she can watch a dinosaur show, she can watch a show about the Loch Ness Monster, right? And so I segued that way, and then she likes pterosaurs. She'll like a show about ropens in Papua New Guinea, and sure enough, that happened. And so we entered the kind of monster quest world, which I'd already watched most of the episodes myself, and then that's ultimately how I came to be on this network, because I reached out to Doug Heichik and was like, hey, I got to get you on the show. This is when it was an independent show.
Absolutely.
And then he was very kind and sent my daughter a lot of fan memorabilia, and she was like already in a monster quest. She's like, Monster Quest. So,
that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I think it's fun for a kid to. I know when I was little, had probably books that are responsible for me being so into the weird now. But there was in the 70s there and the early 80s, there was this British publisher called Unwin, I think was the name, and they did these series of books on the supernatural. Like there'd be one on ghosts, one on monsters, one on UFOs, and they were very popular. They were in school libraries and super scary. Like I bought them again recently, and I'm looking at it going, no wonder I used to be fascinated and terrified of this stuff when I was a little boy in like grade school.
Yeah,
it's like Jeff the Talking Mongoose and famous haunted abbeys and Hopkinsville goblins and Bigfoot, and it's just. But at the same time, it's super enthralling for a child. So
yeah, absolutely is. Yeah.
So it's great you're carrying on that tradition with your books, writing for the next generation. I'm
trying my best. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you got some URLs you could let people know where to get that stuff or what to search for?
Yeah, just so I have a Mothman Learns the ABCs. It's all on Amazon. You can get other than my zine. So Amazon would be the best place to find Mothman Learns the ABCs, and I have Curious Creatures, the Vegetable Man, and then I wrote a book in my podcast called The White Monsters of Sherman, New York, which would take a whole episode to talk about. But it has to do with Keel and finding an eyewitness from the 60s and giant sloths. So if you're into any of that stuff, go check out The White Monsters of Sherman, New York. And then my zine is just kind of just email me, or it's free. I don't charge people for it. I don't want any money from this. I don't want to make money from this. It's not the point for me. So it's just kind of free. There it is. Yep. So if you want one, can you put my email somewhere maybe or something?
I will put your email in the show notes. If you want to say it now, though, for people who are watching immediately, but if you want to say it, you can. But...
Cool. Well, it's Michael Shang 86 @gmail.com. Michael, Michael SCHANG86@gmail.com. So if you want a zine, please hit me up and I'll get you one. I mean, that's, and also I want to point out real quick. There's a show ending pretty soon here.
Yeah, soon. Yeah.
Okay.
You've got time to say whatever you want to, though. So
yeah, real quick. I have kind of self-appointed. I've talked to the family a little bit, but I'm kind of the self-appointed new caretaker of the Barker Cemetery in Sutton, West Virginia. I went up there months back, and I saw it. It's in the middle of the woods. It's in Sutton, West Virginia. It's the cemetery is in the middle of the woods. Me and Andrew from the Flatwoods Monster Museum, we went up there and found his headstone. But it was great. It was wonderful. But I noticed how overgrown it was, and there's a lot of children buried there. Obviously, Gray's there. His mom and dad are buried there. So I went up there and cleaned it all out. It took me a couple of days. I took all the brush out. It was overgrown with weeds. But yeah, I'm gonna start going. I'm starting to go there regularly to start upkeep with the whole thing. And it's been really great, and it's been like enlightening for me to get up there and just take care of those people up there in the middle of the woods. I've never seen a cemetery in the middle of the woods either, so it's a really, really cool time to be able to connect with myself and the people there and stuff. But
what a phenomenal thing for you to do, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it, and it's great. But what I want to throw out there I've never thrown this out to anybody yet, so this is an exclusive for Talking Weird. But if you ever need somebody to help you get up there, or directions or anything, it's not the easiest place to get to. You have to walk through a junkyard, through people's lawns. Essentially, you have to it's very strange. It's a hike. It's about a mile, about a half mile in and a half mile back. So it's a mile hike. So I mean, just email me if you're ever interested in going up there, and I can meet you there, and we can walk in together, and I can help you. Or if you just need directions or better directions or whatever, it's just, we're really trying to get people, because people have been trying to find it and they just can't. They can't find Gray Barker's grave, and people want to see it, I think. So, but yeah, my email that I said earlier, if you are a listener and you want to go out there, just hit me up and maybe we could work a time out where I can show you. Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, cool, awesome. Thank you, Christian. So if you ever want to go to his grave, I love it up there. I've been trying to really take care of it, and it's become my new little project that I've, like I said, I had a little group chat going on with some of his nieces and nephews at one point, and I was like, wow. Does anybody go out there to take care of it? And they're like, no. I mean, nobody can. Everybody that used to take care of it is, older now. They can't get out there. So, so I just kind of self-appointed myself as the caretaker. So if you ever need to get up there,
I'd love to come up there with you. And what an incredible thing that you've done. Mm-hmm. I know when you research somebody as you have, you can begin to feel an affinity for that person. And the fact that now you're actually doing something for that person, even though they passed, it's incredible. Michael,
thank you.
That's one of the most amazing things I've ever heard on this show. And I've heard a lot of amazing things, but that is one of the most amazing.
Yeah, I think you do it's a real, like I said, it's in the middle of the woods, and you get some time to yourself, which is real nice, and then you get the time to just to help these people out. I mean, it's no one's to blame for this. I mean, it's like I said, it's in the middle of the woods. It's hard to get out there. I mean, there's nobody. Whoever was cleaning before probably did a great job, and I'm not throwing anything at them, but it's just not being kept up anymore. And I saw that, and I just, my heart dropped. I just like, well, who's doing this then? I mean, so I just took it upon myself to start doing it, and it's been great. I mean, and like you said before, when you start learning about somebody, you start doing things. I don't know how to explain it. You start doing things that are not out of the norm, but yeah, you feel like a closeness to them somehow. Yeah. And I saw his grave, just overgrown with stuff. I'm like, oh man, get that all out of there. Like, but yeah, it's been a real cool journey for me, and I'm very happy with the results. It's one of my favorite things that I've done, I think, is doing this. So
incredibly worthwhile thing as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, please email me if you ever need to get up there. Like if Dean, if you ever want to come down, I'd be more than happy to bring you up there. It's a little bit of a hike, put on some mud boots, and we'll get there, man. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So
I'd love to. And thank you so much for sharing that both myself and the audience, and for your generosity. And thank you
Absolutely.
for sending me that zine. I would have had, I'll be honest, I reckon you should be charging just to cover it.
Yeah,
Because
that's
it's
a lot of
so
people
good.
say. I appreciate
so
that. Yeah,
good.
I have. I've sent out a lot, and also, yeah, I mentioned that too. All over the world, people are interested. I mean, I've sent to Australia, China. I don't. Yeah, everywhere. People just have this interest in this, and it's been really. It's really made me happy doing this. Just getting his work out there for people that haven't seen it or don't know about it. So I've been sending it all over the United States. I've lost count how many I've sent out at this point. It's just,
Wow.
yeah. So it's pretty neat.
Well, you're keeping Barker's memory alive, and that's an incredible thing. After the show, stick around in the back studio for me for a minute, because I need to grab some details for you so I can let people know where to go in
Absolutely.
the show notes that I don't have. And again, thank you so much for coming on Talking Weird. One of my favorite shows ever, Michael.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for everybody for listening. I appreciate you all.
And until I get to talk to you again and everybody else out there, keep it weird.